The Zerath Dominion had waited 100 years for this moment. Generations of their most skilled warriors, engineers, and strategists had prepared for one goal: to conquer a small blue planet called Earth. From afar, it looked weak and quiet. Its people were primitive, fighting each other with simple weapons compared to the energy rifles and war machines of the Dominion. It was perfect prey, or so the Dominion believed. On the command bridge of the Oblivion's Pride, the flagship of the invasion fleet, Admiral Threx looked out of the wide viewport at the tiny, glowing sphere. The planet hung in space like a fragile jewel. "Finally," he said, his voice low but confident, "after a century of planning, it ends." Around him, junior officers and cadets moved with precision. Every movement had been drilled 1,000 times. Their uniforms were sharp, their armor polished to a mirror shine. They had trained in zero-gravity chambers, heat-simulated battle arenas, and virtual simulations that mimicked Earth's gravity and environment. Every scenario, every possibility had been studied. Every weakness of humanity had been calculated. "Admiral," one officer said, "our simulations indicate that their cities will collapse in less than 24 hours of bombardment. Their defenses are minimal." Threx nodded. "We have prepared for centuries. Nothing on that planet can resist us." Yet, despite his confidence, a small seed of doubt crept into his mind. He remembered the stories older officers whispered, stories of invaders who had tried and failed in other distant worlds. But Earth had been marked as insignificant, weak, and unprepared. To fail here was impossible. Across the galaxy, the Dominion fleet had been growing in secret for decades. Massive warships with thick armored hulls, thousands of fighter squadrons and orbital bombardment platforms had been built in hidden shipyards. These were the deadliest war machines the galaxy had ever seen. Yet, the Dominion scientists had not relied solely on technology. The warriors themselves had been modified, trained to resist pain, fear, and even hunger. They were conditioned to fight without hesitation, to think like machines but act with deadly instinct. The young cadets on Oblivion's Pride whispered among themselves, filled with excitement and pride. They were the first generation to see the invasion, the first to land on Earth. "We will be legends," one said, eyes shining. "Our names will echo across the Dominion forever." Outside, the fleet drifted in formation above Earth's orbit, 100 warships in perfect symmetry. Each one contained thousands of soldiers, tens of thousands of weapons, and 1,000,000 bullets ready to rain down on a planet that had not yet seen them. On the screens of the fleet's command centers, Earth seemed peaceful, its blue oceans reflecting sunlight, its green lands dotted with white cities. "This is it?" Threx said, gripping the edge of the command chair. "Prepare for descent." The Dominion had trained for this. Every invasion scenario had been tested in simulations. Every time the aliens succeeded, every time the human forces were crushed in minutes. And yet there was a strange feeling among some of the younger officers. Something about Earth seemed different. "Admiral," another officer said, "I do not understand. Why has no other civilization tried to invade this planet before? It is weak, primitive, and isolated. No alliances, no weapons comparable to ours. Why has it been untouched?" Threx did not answer immediately. He had asked himself the same question for decades. He had brushed it aside each time, telling himself that the galaxy was too vast and that Earth had simply been irrelevant. But now, as the planet hung before him, he felt a cold, uneasy sensation. "Prepare the landing squads," he said finally. "We do not wait for permission from anyone. This planet is ours by right." Deep within the fleet, the soldiers prepared. They donned their suits, checked their rifles, and reviewed the mission one last time. Every detail of Earth's surface had been mapped. They knew where the cities were, the power grids, the military bases. They had plans for every possible human response, or so they believed. In one hidden simulation room aboard Oblivion's Pride, young cadets watched a final test scenario. On the holographic screen, blue dots representing human defenders moved clumsily against red dots representing the Dominion forces. In the simulation, the humans scattered, buildings fell, and the Dominion conquered with ease. The cadets cheered. "This is going to be too easy," one whispered. 100 years of preparation and we crush them in hours. But outside, Earth continued silently like a sleeping giant. There were no warning signals, no panic, no attempts at communication. The humans had never launched warships into space, never threatened another world, and appeared unaware of the fleet hovering above them. To the Dominion, this was proof of weakness. Yet unknown to the aliens, Earth was not asleep. Humanity had watched the stars for centuries, waiting. Scientists, engineers, and generals had prepared for threats from the heavens. Underground bunkers, orbital weapons platforms, and secret defense networks had been built in silence. For decades, humans had recorded every unusual signal, every satellite anomaly, every fleet moving through nearby space. They had prepared for a day like this without the aliens ever realizing it. Back on the Oblivion's Pride, Admiral Threx issued the final command. Deploy the first wave. Begin the landing. In minutes, the massive warships began descending toward the surface. Fighter squadrons streaked out of hangars, engines burning, cutting through the thin atmosphere like silver arrows. The humans below had no idea what was coming, or so the Dominion thought. The first landers touched down on remote plains. Soldiers stepped out, rifles at the ready, eyes scanning for resistance. For the first time, some of the younger soldiers felt the thrill of battle. This was what they had been trained for. This was what they had lived for. And then, unexpectedly, silence. No gunfire. No screams. No alarms. The landers were surrounded by nothing. Only forests and hills, calm and empty. The soldiers radioed back. "Admiral, there is no resistance. No humans in sight." Threx frowned. "Keep advancing. They are hiding. They will fight. Push forward." But even as he spoke, a strange interference appeared in the communications. A low hum, almost melodic, cut through the channels. It was not like anything the Dominion had ever encountered. The sensors flickered, the targeting systems wavered, and suddenly, the soldiers' rifles misfired. "What is happening?" Threx shouted. "Check all systems." Every ship in the fleet experienced it. Weapons jammed, navigation scrambled, even shields flickered for a moment. Something, or someone, was interfering with every system at once. "Impossible," one officer said. "This planet is primitive. How can it affect our technology?" Then, across every communication channel, a voice spoke in perfect Zirath, clear, confident, and commanding. "We were waiting for you." The words echoed through the fleet like a shockwave. Soldiers froze. Officers looked at each other in disbelief. The voice was not human, yet it was intelligent, precise, and in their language. Threx's heart raced. This was not supposed to happen. No simulation, no training, no century of preparation had predicted this. The alien invasion, meticulously planned for 100 years, had suddenly become uncertain. "Report," Threx barked. "Identify the source." But the sensors could not find it. The source of the voice and the interference was everywhere at once. The humans had prepared and the aliens had not noticed. The planet that had seemed weak and defenseless was already fighting back in ways the Dominion could not yet understand. For the first time, fear crept into the hearts of the once confident soldiers. They had trained for centuries, yet they were now facing something entirely new, something alive, clever, and ready. The humans had waited. They had always watched. And now, the long-prepared invaders realized that their century of training might not be enough. Threx gritted his teeth, staring at the peaceful blue planet. "This is impossible," he muttered. "We have prepared everything. We should already be victorious." The Dominion fleet hovered above Earth in perfect formation, 100 massive warships stretching across the orbit like a ring of steel. From this height, the planet looked peaceful, calm, and fragile. Oceans shimmered in blue, forests swayed gently in the wind, and cities sparkled like clusters of tiny stars. To the Zerath, this quietness was proof of weakness. Admiral Threx studied the planet from the command deck of Oblivion's Pride. He had expected some warning, some panic, even a token resistance, but there was none. It was almost insulting. "They are hiding," he muttered. "They will not fight until we are close. Prepare the landers. Begin descent in T-minus 30 seconds. Inside the warships, soldiers checked their weapons and systems. Laser rifles gleamed under the bright lights of the hangars. Exosuits sealed tight, thrusters primed, minds focused. Every Dominion warrior had trained their entire life for this moment. They had visualized human opponents, weak defenses, and easy victories. Every scenario had ended in total Dominion success. Now, all of that certainty was about to meet reality. Outside, the orbital atmosphere shimmered as the warships cut through it, descending in perfect coordination. The first wave of landers touched down on remote plains and mountain regions. Soldiers disembarked, scanning the surroundings. To their eyes, the landscape was calm and empty. Birds flew in the distance, forests swayed. No humans, no vehicles, no signs of activity. "Report," Threx demanded. "Why is there no resistance?" A junior officer hesitated. "Admiral, everything appears normal. There are no defense structures in this area. No radar signatures, no movement." Threx's jaw tightened. "They are hiding. Keep advancing." But then something strange happened. A low humming vibration passed through the landers, subtle at first, almost imperceptible. Then sensors began flickering. Communication channels crackled and distorted. Weapon systems, carefully calibrated for Earth's conditions, began to misfire. Energy shields, which should have been impenetrable, wavered for brief moments. "What is this?" Threx shouted. "Check all systems." The hum spread across the fleet, reaching every warship in orbit. Fighter squadrons preparing to deploy found their guidance systems jammed. Communications between ships became intermittent. The Zereth had trained for centuries, yet they had no answer for this anomaly. And then the voice came. Clear, strong, and terrifyingly calm. It filled every channel simultaneously. It spoke in flawless Zerath. "We were waiting for you." Silence fell over the fleet. Soldiers froze. Officers blinked in disbelief. The voice came from nowhere and everywhere at once. The humans were speaking directly to them in their language, without warning, without showing themselves. Threx's confidence faltered. "Impossible," he said under his breath. "This planet, it should not be able to do this." "Admiral," a communications officer cried. "It is everywhere. We cannot locate the source. It is not in any single place." Threx clenched his fists. "Focus on landing the troops, nothing else matters. Push forward." But even as the order was given, the humans revealed themselves. Not in cities or armies, but in stealth. Ships previously hidden behind clouds, mountains, and the planet's curvature began to appear in orbit and on the surface. Cloaked warships and advanced drones moved silently, unseen by Zerath sensors. The first human attack struck with surgical precision. Orbital platforms fired high-velocity rail projectiles at the descending landers. Shields that were supposed to withstand massive bombardment collapsed in moments. Energy weapons overloaded frying targeting systems. The landers that had touched down were shredded before soldiers could even disembark. What is this?" One soldier screamed as his rifle jammed. Another tried to call for backup, but the signal never reached the flagship. Communications were gone. The humans had cut them off before the battle even began. Threx slammed his fist on the console. "All units form defensive perimeter. Protect the fleet." Above, the orbital battle escalated. Humans piloted sleek fighters that dwarfed the agility of Dominion craft. They struck from impossible angles, their weapons precise and deadly. Entire squadrons vanished in seconds, leaving only twisted wreckage floating in space. The aliens had trained for centuries. They had simulated every tactic. They had expected humans to be weak, disorganized, and easy to kill. None of that was true. Humanity was disciplined, cunning, and ruthless. The invaders were meeting an enemy that fought like predators, not prey. Back on Earth, in hidden command bunkers, human generals watched the battle unfold on massive holographic screens. They had predicted the fleet's path, its weapons, and its landing zones. Every human strike was calculated, every move anticipated. Earth's forces had waited, prepared, and now struck with maximum efficiency. "We've got them exactly where we want," one commander said calmly. "Keep pressure on their landers. Prevent them from establishing footholds, they won't last long." In the skies above, Zerath cruisers tried to regroup. They fired blindly, trying to locate the source of the interference, the voice, the hidden fleets. Nothing worked. Every attack was met with counterattacks faster than their sensors could detect. Fighters were shredded mid-flight. Energy shields that were supposed to be invulnerable collapsed under human weapons. On the surface, the first squads of Dominion soldiers tried to advance. They moved cautiously through forests and plains, rifles raised. Every step they took was calculated, cautious, trained. But they found themselves trapped. The humans had set up electronic snares, drones that patrolled like invisible hunters, and energy traps that disabled their armor. "Admiral, we are taking heavy losses," a field officer reported. "Our troops cannot advance. They are being picked off before they even reach the cities." Threx felt a chill run down his spine. "Impossible. We have trained for this. We are prepared. Keep advancing." But the more they advanced, the more they realized the truth. Earth was not defenseless. It was not chaotic. It was alive, aware, and deadly. Each attempt by the Dominion to gain a foothold was met with immediate calculated retaliation. Humans moved like shadows, striking from nowhere, disappearing before retaliation was possible. A lander crashed in a valley. Soldiers scrambled to exit, expecting to engage civilians or military units. Instead, the valley was empty. Trees swayed, a river sparkled in sunlight, and silence reigned. Then, without warning, a precise rail projectile slammed into the lander, tearing it apart. Those who survived were trapped, disoriented, and surrounded by unmapped human forces. In orbit, the flagship received another shock. Their main power, grid supplying shields and weapons to the entire fleet, was partially disabled. Threx had never seen anything like it. What is this technology?" he muttered. "It shouldn't exist." Humans, meanwhile, continued their assault with calm efficiency. Their ships, hidden in orbit or underwater, moved like predators through the Dominion formations. Fighters struck the moment the Zerath ships exposed a weak point. Every orbital strike was calculated to maximize damage and minimize exposure. The first signs of panic began to spread through the Dominion ranks. Soldiers, trained to fear nothing, felt the creeping unease of a battle they could not control. Officers barked orders, but the response was slow, chaotic, and ineffective. The humans had disrupted their communications, jammed their weapons, and destroyed their first wave of landers in mere minutes. "This is impossible," one officer said quietly, hiding from his peers. "They shouldn't be able to fight like this." Threx's jaw tightened. He had spent decades preparing for this moment. 100 years of planning, simulations, and training had led to this point, and yet within minutes the invincible Dominion forces were being humiliated. The humans made no attempt to negotiate. They did not call for surrender. They struck with deadly precision, teaching the invaders that this planet would not be conquered. Humanity had waited, observed, and trained in secret for exactly this day. Every century of Zerath preparation was met with a counter-century of human foresight. In the command deck of the flagship, Threx gritted his teeth, staring down at the planet he had come to conquer. "We underestimated them," he admitted. We are not prepared for this." For the humans, the battle had only just begun. They had waited a century for the moment when the galaxy would try to take their home, and now their patience and preparation were paying off. Earth, the quiet blue planet that seemed so weak, was showing the first glimmers of its true power. The first wave of the Dominion fleet was being shredded in minutes. Communication lines failed. Landers were destroyed. Fighters were annihilated. And above all, the humans remained calm, calculating, and deadly. In orbit and on the surface, the stage was set for the battle of a lifetime. The aliens had trained for centuries to fight humans, But what they did not know was that humanity had also been training. They had waited, they had watched, and now they were ready to show the galaxy why no one should ever underestimate the people of Earth. The Zirath Dominion fleet, once the mightiest force in their sector of the galaxy, was now in chaos. Their ships floated in orbit above Earth, damaged, confused, and under attack from every direction. Signals failed. Weapons misfired. Landers that should have easily breached Earth's surface were shredded before they could even reach the cities. What the Dominion had expected to be hours of conquest had turned into mere minutes of survival, and now, the humans revealed the true scale of their response. Deep below the surface, hidden in fortified command centers and secret bunkers, humanity had prepared for this day for decades. Engineers monitored satellites, drones, and orbital weapon platforms. Generals coordinated land and air forces. Every soldier, pilot, and technician knew exactly what to do. They had waited patiently while the Dominion plotted in secret. Now their patience paid off. On the main command floor of the Global Defense Network, General Mara Singh watched the alien fleet's movements on a massive holographic screen. The ships, huge and confident moments ago, were now scattered, disorganized, and burning in parts of the upper atmosphere. "Engage the first strike units," she ordered calmly. "Cut off their reinforcements, they cannot recover." From hidden bases in the mountains, human pilots launched fighters faster than the eye could follow. Sleek, agile ships darted through orbital debris, dodging missiles and attacking alien cruisers from angles the Dominion could not anticipate. Railguns fired, tearing through armor with precision unmatched in the galaxy. Drones swarmed over landers, disabling their engines and shields. Every attack was calculated, every strike precise. Above the forests, one Dominion lander attempted to deploy soldiers. The armored doors opened and soldiers stepped onto the ground, rifles ready. They expected panic, chaos, and humans fleeing in terror. Instead, they found nothing. The valley was calm. The air smelled of pine and soil. And then, a sudden burst of energy swept through their suits. Systems failed, weapons jammed. Drones appeared from nowhere, attacking the soldiers with incredible speed. Some never even saw their attackers before they fell. One young soldier, Zarnik, scrambled to retreat. His squad had trained for decades, yet every step felt like a trap. "Move back! Regroup!" he shouted, but his words were lost in the chaos. Around him, landers burned, engines failed, and other squads were destroyed by invisible forces. The humans were everywhere and nowhere at once, striking with deadly precision. In orbit, the Dominion commanders tried to regain control. "Admiral," Threx's voice cut across the fleet. "All units fall back, form a defensive perimeter, protect the flagship." But even as the order was given, the humans struck again. Cloaked ships appeared, invisible to Zirath sensors, firing concentrated energy beams that ripped through cruisers like paper. Fighters and drones flanked every angle. Entire squadrons disappeared before they could fire a single shot. "Admiral," one officer reported, voice trembling, "our fleet is losing cohesion. We cannot communicate effectively. The humans, they are everywhere." Threx's jaw tightened. He had trained for this moment his entire life. He had spent decades studying simulations, preparing his forces, and leading his people to this supposed victory. And yet, the reality before him was impossible. "Keep fighting," he barked. "We will not be defeated. This is Earth. Destroy them all." But the humans had anticipated every move. Satellites and orbital platforms fired kinetic projectiles with perfect timing, targeting engines, shields, and weapon systems. Fighters swooped down, striking exposed surfaces with railguns and laser cannons. Drones disabled landers and soldiers in seconds. The invaders were trapped, unable to regroup or retreat. On Earth's surface, hidden soldiers moved like shadows through forests, cities, and mountains. They were invisible until they struck, and when they struck, it was deadly. They used the terrain, the weather, and their advanced technology to their advantage. The Dominion soldiers had trained to fight in harsh conditions, but they were no match for humans who had turned their home planet into a fortress. In one valley, Zarnik's squad tried to retreat to a landing site. The trees suddenly shimmered, with invisible energy barriers cutting off their escape. The ground rumbled as human vehicles, unseen until now, moved with speed and precision, attacking the squad from flanks and rear. The soldiers fired blindly, but every weapon misfired, jammed, or was destroyed by the unseen humans. Within minutes, Zarnik was the only survivor, stunned and terrified, trapped in a world that seemed alive with enemies he could not see. Above, in the sky, fighter squadrons engaged in dogfights the Dominion had never imagined. Human pilots moved with instincts honed from generations of survival. They dodged attacks with impossible agility, striking at weak points before the aliens could react. Every cruiser, every lander, every fighter was under assault. The once mighty fleet was crumbling. "This cannot be happening," Threx said, gripping the edge of his command chair. "We trained for a century. We simulated every possibility. How can a primitive species defeat us?" "Admiral," an officer replied hesitantly, "perhaps we underestimated them. Perhaps we should have observed longer before attacking." Threx shook his head, refusing to accept the truth. "Observation is useless now. Fight, survive." But even as he spoke, more landers were destroyed. More soldiers were disabled or killed. The humans were not just defending, they were counterattacking, striking with intelligence and precision that made the Dominion simulations look laughable. Every plan the aliens had made crumbled in the face of a species they had considered weak, disorganized, and primitive. On the other side of the world, other Dominion forces had tried different tactics, landing near cities thinking they would face minimal resistance. They were met with advanced human defenses, energy barriers that blocked their landers, drone swarms that tore apart their machines, and precision artillery that struck with deadly timing. The aliens had prepared for conventional resistance, but the humans were unconventional, unpredictable, and unstoppable. In orbit, Threx looked at the holographic screen showing the battlefield. Blue dots representing humans moved with uncanny intelligence, striking, retreating, and attacking again, with perfect coordination. Red dots representing Dominion forces were shrinking rapidly, consumed by human attacks. Entire squadrons were wiped out. Landers were reduced to burning wreckage. Fighters exploded in the sky. "This is not just defense," Threx said quietly. "This is a war unlike any we have ever fought." Below, humans moved silently through forests, mountains, and cities. They were ghosts, predators, and warriors all at once. Every move was calculated, every attack precise. They struck at weaknesses the Dominion had never considered. They anticipated the invaders' strategies before the aliens even executed them. One human drone operator, barely a teenager, guided a swarm of drones toward a Dominion cruiser attempting to land troops. With perfect timing, the drones disabled. The ship's engines then cut through its shields, leaving it floating helpless in orbit. The operator smiled faintly. "They should have never come here," he whispered. The Dominion fleet, once confident and proud, was now in panic. Officers argued, soldiers screamed, and chaos spread through the ranks. Threx realized the truth. Centuries of preparation, decades of training, and the mightiest war machines the galaxy had ever seen were being destroyed in minutes. And still, the humans pressed on. They did not stop. They did not negotiate. They struck with calm, calculated precision. Every attack was designed not just to repel the invaders, but to teach them a lesson. Earth would not be conquered. Not today, not ever. Zarnik, the lone surviving soldier in the valley, watched as human forces moved with lethal grace. He could see their strategy, their coordination, and their patience. They were nothing like the simulations he had trained for. These humans were predators, not prey. They fought with intelligence, courage, and deadly instinct. Threx, staring down at the holographic screens, realized the same thing. The humans had waited, they had prepared, and now, the invaders, trained for a century, were facing a species that had outsmarted them at every turn. The battle was no longer about conquest, it was about survival. For the Dominion, every second counted, and every second was bringing more losses. Ships burned, soldiers fell, and the invaders' confidence crumbled. On Earth, General Mara Singh observed the battlefield with calm satisfaction. Humanity was, not just defending, they were teaching the galaxy a lesson. The Dominion had underestimated a species that seemed weak and primitive. They had assumed that strength and technology alone would guarantee victory. But humans had waited, observed, and planned in silence. Now the invaders were learning the hard way that this planet and its people were unlike anything they had ever faced. The Dominion fleet, once the pride of their empire, was now a shattered illusion of power. Fires burned across their largest cruisers. Fighters drifted lifeless through orbit. Landers that were supposed to secure Earth's surface lay in ruins, their soldiers trapped or destroyed. In less than 6 minutes, the century-long preparation of the Zereth had crumbled into chaos. Admiral Threx gripped the armrest of his command chair on Oblivion's pride, his claws digging deep into the metal. His mind raced, trying to calculate a way to regain control. But every system failed just as he thought he had a solution. Weapons jammed, shields flickered, and communication channels remained silent. "Admiral," one officer gasped, "we've lost contact with 40% of the fleet. The rest, they're under heavy fire. Our landers destroyed. Fighters annihilated. This cannot be happening." Threx's eyes narrowed. "They are stronger than we imagined," he muttered. "No simulation predicted this. No training prepared us for humans." The humans above were relentless. Orbital platforms fired railguns with pinpoint accuracy, cutting through cruiser hulls. Cloaked ships struck from angles the Dominion had never seen, while drones swarmed over landers, ripping apart engines and weapon systems. On the ground, soldiers faced invisible attacks from every direction, as human forces emerged from forests, mountains, and cities to strike and vanish before retaliation. Zarnik, the surviving Dominion soldier from the valley, ran through the wreckage of his squad, desperate to regroup. His armor was damaged. His rifle misfired. His heart pounded as he watched humans move like shadows, striking with deadly efficiency. He realized the truth that no simulation could have taught him. Earth's defenders were not just strong, they were predators. "Sir," another officer reported, "their technology, it's everywhere. They can disable our weapons, scramble our sensors, and attack from impossible angles. We can't escape it." The humans had not just prepared defenses, they had anticipated every offensive tactic the Dominion could use. They had studied alien technology, developed countermeasures, and positioned forces with perfect timing. It was not just skill, it was strategy, patience, and instinct honed over generations. In orbit, the battle became a nightmare for the Dominion. Cruiser after cruiser exploded in fire. Fighters fell from the sky. Landers were destroyed mid-descent. The fleet's once perfect formation dissolved into chaos. Every attempt at coordination was met with human attacks that the aliens could neither predict nor counter. Threx slammed his claws against the console, his anger and fear mixing into desperation. "All units, retreat! Pull back to the flagship!" "Save what you can." But retreat was impossible. Human forces had blocked every escape route. Orbital defense satellites fired with precision. Hidden warships appeared along the fleet's path. Even the fastest fighters were intercepted by human pilots who seemed to anticipate every move before it happened. On the ground, humans moved silently. Forests and hills concealed snipers, drones, and artillery units. Soldiers tried to hide behind trees or buildings, but the humans struck from all directions. Some aliens tried to regroup, forming tight squads for defense, but within moments, their numbers were cut down. Panic spread among the soldiers. Their confidence, built over decades, was gone. Zarnik ducked behind a broken lander, his mind racing. He had trained his entire life to face enemies, but nothing had prepared him for humans. They were fast, clever, and terrifyingly coordinated. Every move he made was countered before he could finish it. He realized that survival was now his only goal. Above the cities, human orbital platforms fired again. Railguns tore through the hulls of Dominion capital ships. Fighters darted in and out of their blind spots, striking weak points with precision. Cloaked drones disabled engines and shields, leaving the largest ships drifting helpless in space. In 6 minutes, fleets that had trained for centuries were destroyed. Back on the flagship, Threx realized that time had run out. The invaders' confidence, their pride, their century of preparation, it all fell apart in the span of minutes. "This cannot be," he muttered. "We are the Zirath Dominion. No species can defeat us in minutes." But the humans had shown otherwise. Their patience, intelligence, and preparation had turned the tide in ways no alien could have expected. They were calm, efficient, and deadly. They did not hesitate. They did not panic. Every attack was designed to neutralize the enemy completely, leaving no chance for recovery. On Earth's surface, human squads moved through cities, plains, and forests, guiding survivors and destroying remaining threats. Their coordination was flawless. Vehicles moved silently, drones swarmed in formation, and artillery struck with deadly accuracy. They were everywhere at once, leaving the Dominion soldiers disoriented and terrified. Zarnik stumbled into a canyon, watching a Dominion cruiser explode in orbit above him. Heat and debris rained down. He had no idea how much longer he could survive. He knew that reinforcements would never arrive, and every second brought more danger. In orbit, Threx's flagship was heavily damaged. Fire burned along the hull. Systems failed one by one. He had no choice but to initiate emergency protocols. "Prepare the escape pods," he ordered. "Abandon the fleet. Survive, if you can." Even as he spoke, human forces struck again. Drones swarmed the escape pods, disabling engines before they could launch. Railguns tore through escape craft. Fighters intercepted any survivors. The humans had anticipated every move, cutting off every retreat, leaving the Dominion fleet trapped in a nightmare of destruction. The 6 minutes continued, stretching into an eternity for the invaders. What had been the pride of their empire was now burning in orbit, falling to the planet below or floating helpless in the void. Soldiers screamed, officers panicked, and the once mighty fleet was reduced to ash and fire. Threx realized the ultimate truth. Earth's defenders had not only repelled the invasion, they had humiliated the Zirath Dominion. Every strategy, every plan, every century of preparation had been rendered useless. Humanity had turned the tables, showing the galaxy that they were not to be underestimated. Below, on Earth, humans did not celebrate. They were precise, controlled, and disciplined. Their work was not finished. They had defended their planet, destroyed the invaders, and sent a message to the stars. But they knew the galaxy would watch, and any species that thought to attack would face the same fate. Zarnik, now alone, hid among rocks and ruins, breathing heavily. He had survived 6 minutes. 6 minutes that had shattered the Dominion's confidence and pride. He had seen firsthand the intelligence, strategy, and deadly efficiency of humans, and he knew that nothing in the galaxy would ever seem the same again. In orbit, Threx stared down at the blue planet, his pride in ruins. They were ready, he whispered. "We underestimated them. No empire can prepare for this." And on Earth, in the calm after the storm, humanity waited. Their defenses had worked. Their patience had paid off. And the Zirath Dominion, the species that had trained for a century to conquer a weak planet, had survived only 6 minutes against the unstoppable force of humanity. The galaxy would remember this day, not for the power of the Zirath, but for the intelligence, courage, and deadly precision of humans. A species that appeared weak and primitive had proven that they were predators beyond reckoning, capable of defending their home and defeating the mightiest invaders in minutes. For the humans, the battle was a warning to all who would challenge them. Earth was not a world to be conquered, it was a fortress. Its people were not prey. They were hunters, and any who came to their planet would find themselves facing a force unlike any the galaxy had ever known. 6 minutes had been enough to change the course of history. The Zirath Dominion had learned the hard way that centuries of training could be useless against a species that had prepared in secret, waited patiently, and struck with intelligence and deadly instinct. The fires of battle had barely cooled. In orbit around Earth, only fragments of the once mighty Zerath Dominion fleet floated, drifting like broken monuments of a power that had overreached. Twisted hulls of cruisers glimmered faintly in the sun's reflection, fighters lay broken, and escape pods burned as they fell through the atmosphere. In less than 6 minutes, the Dominion's centuries of preparation had been reduced to ruin. On the surface, humanity surveyed the aftermath. With calm precision, cities remained largely intact. Infrastructure had survived the brief but intense skirmish. Human forces had moved like shadows during the battle, striking at the enemy with perfect timing and vanishing before any counterattack could reach them. Earth had defended itself not with sheer numbers or reckless power, but with intelligence, preparation, and strategy honed over generations. In a fortified command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Mara Singh monitored the remaining Dominion fragments on her screens. "All units stand down," she ordered. "The battle is over." Her voice was steady, though her eyes were sharp. Humanity had defended their planet, but they could not afford complacency. "Begin recovery operations. Document every piece of alien technology we can find. Every lesson matters." Meanwhile, scattered Zerath survivors attempted to regroup, their morale shattered. Admiral Threk sat in what remained of the flagship's control room, staring blankly at the wreckage displayed on holographic screens. The pride and confidence of the Dominion had been completely destroyed in mere minutes. His empire had expected an easy victory. Instead, they had found themselves humiliated by a species they had long considered primitive and defenseless. A junior officer approached cautiously. "Admiral, orders?" Threk shook his head slowly. "There are no orders. We survive. If we can. Gather what remains and retreat from orbit. Warn the Empire. Warn them that humans cannot be underestimated." His voice was heavy with disbelief. For the first time in history, the Zerath Dominion had been utterly outsmarted and outmaneuvered in their opening assault. On Earth, humans were already thinking ahead. Teams of engineers and scientists moved toward the debris of Dominion technology. They studied the alien ships, analyzed weapon systems, and recorded every anomaly. Humanity had learned from centuries of observing the stars and surviving harsh conditions. And now, they would absorb knowledge from the species that had dared to challenge them. Elsewhere, in cities around the world, civilians emerged cautiously. No one had panicked during the attack thanks to careful preparations and emergency protocols. People had waited safely in shelters while military forces handled the invaders. Now, as the alien threat receded, the citizens of Earth saw the scope of the victory. Reports streamed in of destroyed landers, burnt-out ships, and scattered alien troops fleeing or captured. Humanity had survived an invasion that should have crushed them. In one quiet control center overlooking the Pacific Ocean, human strategists debated their next move. "They came thinking us weak," one analyst said. "They underestimated our intelligence, our coordination, our willingness to fight to protect our home. No one else in the galaxy should make the same mistake." General Singh nodded. "Exactly. Let this be a warning not just to the Dominion but to the entire galaxy. Earth is not a planet to be conquered. Anyone who attacks will face the same outcome." Above, the remaining Zerath ships fled into deep space, badly damaged and demoralized. Messages sent to the Dominion Empire were filled with warnings. Humanity was not just resilient, it was lethal, intelligent, and ready. Every commander who had trained for decades had learned the same brutal truth. 100 years of preparation could be destroyed in 6 minutes by humans who had prepared in silence for generations. The galaxy, watching from afar, took notice. Communications relays from distant star systems buzzed with news of the disaster. Civilizations that had considered Earth a minor world now viewed it with awe and fear. The planet that seemed quiet and weak had defended itself against one of the deadliest fleets in existence. Humanity had emerged victorious, and the message was clear: do not underestimate humans. On the ground, survivors among the Dominion soldiers wandered in shock. Some were captured. Some fled into hiding. Most were too stunned to comprehend what had happened. They had trained for centuries, simulated every scenario. and yet their careful calculations had failed spectacularly. Humans had not just defended their planet, they had humiliated the invaders, striking faster, smarter, and deadlier than any alien strategy had predicted. Threx, the once proud admiral, finally allowed himself a moment of reflection. He had led his fleet with confidence, believing in the superiority of his species, in the perfection of their training. And yet, humanity had shown him that strength alone was meaningless without intelligence, preparation, and cunning. We misjudged them, he admitted quietly. We misjudged the humans. No one will make that mistake again. Meanwhile, Earth's leaders convened to discuss the future. They had survived an invasion that could have annihilated civilization, and they knew the galaxy would respond. They began planning defenses, research, and communications, ensuring that humanity's power, patience, and intelligence would never be underestimated again. They would prepare for threats, yes, but they would also prepare to teach the galaxy a lesson. In the aftermath, humanity broadcast a simple message across every open channel the Dominion fleet had used. Do not mistake silence for weakness. Do not mistake peace for passivity. Earth will defend itself, and those who attack will be destroyed. Remember this day. The message echoed across space, clear and unambiguous. Civilizations that had thought of humans as backward, primitive, or unimportant now understood the truth. Humanity had defended their planet, destroyed a fleet that had trained for a century, and survived against the odds. They were predators, not prey. On Earth, Zarnik and the few remaining alien soldiers were gathered by human forces. Some were interrogated, some were treated with caution, but respect. Every action was recorded. The invaders had survived 6 minutes, but those minutes had shattered the pride of the Dominion, reshaped their understanding of the galaxy, and proved the deadly capabilities of humans. For the humans, the battle was more than survival. It was a statement to the galaxy. They would not bow, they would not be underestimated, and they were prepared to defend their home with intelligence, patience, and deadly precision. The stars around Earth seemed quieter now, but the echoes of the battle would resonate for years to come. Every alien civilization watching from afar had learned the same lesson. The humans of Earth were not a species to be conquered. They were strategists, warriors, and predators. They had waited, watched, and struck with deadly accuracy. And now the galaxy knew their power. In the quiet command center of the Global Defense Network, General Singh allowed herself a moment to breathe. The battle was over, the invaders repelled, and Earth was safe, for now. But the message was clear. Humanity had survived what no one thought possible, and they would continue to survive, grow, and dominate in their own way. Threx, now a humbled admiral, drifted through space aboard his damaged ship. He could feel the weight of failure pressing on him. The humans had changed everything. Their tactics, patience, and intelligence had destroyed the pride of the Dominion. He knew that when he returned home, there would be no glory, only shame and warning. Across the galaxy, other species sent scouts, observers, and envoys. They wanted to understand how a seemingly weak planet had crushed a powerful empire in minutes. Humanity had not just defended Earth, they had rewritten the rules of engagement for any potential invader. On Earth, life returned to a cautious normalcy. People emerged from shelters, surveyed the damage, and began rebuilding. But they knew that the universe had changed. Humanity had survived an impossible attack, and their place in the galaxy had been cemented. No one would mistake Earth for a weak planet ever again. And somewhere, deep in the ruins of space, the remaining Zerath ships limped away, carrying the memory of 6 minutes that had destroyed their pride, shattered their fleet, and taught them a lesson they would never forget. Earth had survived, humanity had won, the galaxy had watched, and the lesson was clear. Underestimate humans, and you do so at your own peril. The blue planet hung in space, calm once again. Oceans shimmered, forests swayed, and cities glimmered in the sunlight. It seemed peaceful, but beneath that surface, Humanity had proven something that would echo across the stars. They were not just survivors, they were predators.